There's something compelling about stories where the main character faces off against their evil counterpart, outlining the core theme that sometimes our biggest enemy is ourselves. And this is especially present in Rick and Morty. While being one of the funniest adult cartoons that spawned an infinite amount of memes, some for the better and some for the worse, has a fantastic storyline with not many one-sided characters. The main character Rick was initially a parody of Doc Brown from Back to the Future, but quickly grew into his own as the abrasive drunk with a very, as he'd say,
stupid crybaby backstory.
While he's one of the show's most complex characters, there's another character that gained huge popularity ever since he made his first appearance. A character that subverted expectations, a character that broke free from the prison of identity, a character that went toe-to-toe with the smartest being in the entire multiverse. This is the full story of Evil Morty, Entropy with Intent. If you're new around here, please subscribe and leave a like. I make video essays on games, movies, cartoons, and more. It gives me a huge boost and motivation to continue making these kinds of videos. Oh yeah, and anyone who guesses the correct amount of times I say Rick,
I'll tell you what, I'll do you a favor. I'll throw in a fart.
With that out of the way, let's get to the video. We begin in the episode Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind. An evil Rick and Morty are going around killing other Ricks and kidnapping their Mortys. The Council of Ricks then accuses our Rick, C-137, of being the one behind it all, since he's apparently had a history of going against the Council. Slight foreshadowing for the true nature of the Citadel. He escapes and eventually tracks down the real killers. We find out that they tortured the Mortys they kidnapped to shield themselves from ever being found. After the Mortys come together and take evil Rick out, the Council apologizes, and we get one of the most important pieces of dialogue.
A cocky Morty can lead to some big problems. Can be a real bad thing for everybody.
Oh yeah? How's that?
I'll explain when you're older.
And we see exactly what he meant by this in the next scene. The big reveal is that evil Rick was being controlled by someone. That someone was none other than evil Morty. At the time, this reveal was huge, and I'll explain why. You see, up until this point, Morty hadn't done anything useful. All he did was fucking whine. So to see a version of Morty be this much of a mastermind was insane. And I obviously have to mention his badass theme for The Damaged Coda by Blonde Redhead. Needless to say, he spawned a huge fan base and an infinite number of theories, which I'll touch on later. Let's now skip 2 seasons later to the episode The Ricklantis Mixup. The title was, in fact, a total subversion, because it's actually a Citadel episode. Following the collapse of the original in the season 3 premiere, we see that the Citadel is holding an election. This episode highlights how Ricks have privilege over Mortys in almost every regard. So it's quite a surprise to see that a singular Morty is a candidate for the election. A bunch of Ricks constantly flame him, and even his Morty agent tells him to pull out of the race. This Morty does the unthinkable, and manages to turn the tide of the votes, and eventually wins the election. And the first thing he does is fire his agent. Later, a private investigator Rick comes to that Morty and hands him a classified file. This leads to President Morty's attempted assassination. Yes, attempted. He says,
No, you gotta listen to me. I worked for him. I was his campaign manager. That Morty is not what he seems.
Hey, I didn't know I was watching Gravity Falls. So he gets ejected into empty space. President Morty, as you guessed, is in fact evil Morty. We hear his theme play once again as he completely revamps the Citadel and kills anyone who opposes him. This episode is yet another reminder of how much of a badass he really is. The funniest part is how we see our Rick and Morty come back from Atlantis, joking around about how they're never going back to the Citadel. Well, that was a bold claim, because in the season 5 finale, Rickmurai Jack, the two come face to face with him again. They come to the Citadel because Morty turned himself into a 40-year-old, and after turning him back, the president invites them for dinner. Morty wants to go because he never gets to have a say in what adventures they go on, and Rick says,
but the second he reveals he's evil, we're gone.
It is here where we get a few bombshells. 1, Rick C-137 built the Citadel, and 2, turns out that all the Ricks in the Citadel began to breed Mortys throughout the multiverse, either by cloning or by forcing Jerry and Beth to get together. Makes you wonder if our Jerry never really knocked up Beth, and she somehow got pregnant. The whole point of this is what was mentioned in season 1. Ricks need Mortys to shield themselves from external forces like the bureaucrats.
He's an infinite smear of one shitty old man, and he's attached to us infinitely through his weakness and our forgiveness.
After that reveal, we get one of the sickest moments from Evil Morty. As Rick is about to leave, Evil Morty says,
he's the Rickest Rick. We'll never see him again.
Giving him a smug look, and Rick realizes what's through the portal.
Holy shit!
I only know one man that ever hacked my portal gun, and it turned out it was evil you.
That line alone demonstrates just how much of a fucking monster Evil Morty is. At this point, the Citadel begins to fall apart after Evil Morty tampers with the portal fluid. On top of that, he's also aware of Operation Phoenix, a backup system that transfers the consciousness of Ricks and Mortys into stored clone bodies after death, and the bloodbath continues. Evil Morty literally thought of every single thing for his plan. Speaking of his plan, we learn that his main goal is to destroy the central finite curve. Now what is that? It turns out our Rick created a multiverse filter. There's a reason why in every universe we visit in the show, Rick is the smartest man in the universe. He cut off universes where he isn't the smartest. Evil Morty just wants to bring it down and escape because he's sick and tired of Ricks and their antics.
If you've ever been sick of him, you've been evil too. Sooner or later we all are. On this side of the curve.
And he tears open a hole in the universe. And yet again, we get an incredible scene. We hear an orchestral version of Evil Morty's theme alongside some of the best visuals we've seen so far in the show. In the end, Evil Morty opens up a yellow portal, which to me symbolizes that
the hierarchy of power is about to change.
One of the things I find most fascinating about Evil Morty is how complex his motivation really is. You see, ever since his first appearance, there is a common theory being flung around. Evil Morty is our Rick's original Morty, and the reason why he went after our Rick in the first place was because he had abandoned him to die in another universe. I loved the theory because there were so many hints and nods to it being true.
A cocky Morty can lead to some big problems.
And the writers were kind of aware of this, which is why a few episodes before we find out about Evil Morty's true motivation, we had the episode Never Ricking Morty. This episode is going to be a ball ache to explain because Dan Harmon loves going meta, a bit too much if you ask me, but essentially the episode critiques normal story structures. In one scene, we see a potential future where our Rick and Morty come across Evil Morty alongside a Darth Maul Mr. Poopy Butthole and an army of Mr. Meeseeks. This is the writers poking fun at the fans because most of us believed that was how the climax of Evil Morty would be, an Avengers Endgame level war, but instead we got a far more complex one. Evil Morty just wants nothing to do with Rick anymore. Sure, he went about it in obscenely horrid ways. He is the perfect foil to Rick C-137. They've both killed millions of Ricks and Mortys. One of them, however, had such an inflated ego that he built a wall around infinity so that he could be the only smartest man in the universe. Evil Morty, however, did everything in his power to break free from the constraints of destiny and from his asshole of a grandpa. Rick C-137's bloodlust could be seen as a product of grief over his dead wife. But Evil Morty's just comes from exhaustion. He's tired of following orders, of being used, of living in a world built around Rick's ego. So who's worse? Who's more justified? Morally, I'm not sure. I'll leave that for you to decide. Evil Morty's story doesn't end there, as he shows up yet again 2 seasons later in the episode Unmortricken, probably his most badass appearance. This episode opens up like any other, with Morty flaming Rick and whining about the adventure they just went on, when he lashes out at him.
I'm not doing this anymore. Either you're in or you're out, Morty. I'm tired of you weaponizing this half-assed threat. You want out, then fucking quit!
And Morty for once stops arguing, apologizes, gives Rick some beer, and goes to his room. There we see him create this device, and when he comes back to the garage, Rick is drunk out of his mind, and oh shit, this is Evil Morty's origin story. Although we don't see what he does to his Rick on screen, we know for sure that he turned him into a robot, or at least stuffed him with implants so that he can control it. We see scenes from his first appearance in season 1, hunting down Ricks to find our Rick. What's really tragic is we see evil Rick trying to kill himself. So when he says,
Do your worst, you little bastards! Kill me! Do it! Do it!
he's being fully genuine. In the present, we see Evil Morty running away from this 2-headed crystal dinosaur, but as he's proved time and time again, he's always prepared. It's cool to see life outside the curve, even for a little bit. He finally arrives in his own little pocket to relax, finally free of Rick forever. But of course, it doesn't last long. Our Rick is trying to find Rick Prime and somehow starts disrupting Evil Morty's paradise. He shows up, shits on Rick's process, and tells him the correct way to flush Prime out. They find the right guy, which leads them to getting trapped in some kind of saw trap. It is here where we learn about the Omega device, a device that kills people in every conceivable reality. That catches the attention of Evil Morty, which leads to the sickest team up ever. Imagine showing a fan this shot back in season 3. I would lose my shit. Evil Morty and our Rick going against Rick Prime, the worst Rick of them all. Pure fan service at its best. And it's no surprise that the Rickest Rick and the Rickest Morty are a great team. Not just physically, but intellectually. They had to combine their portal guns in order to escape the death trap. After leaving, they track him down, and yet again, we see how well Evil Morty and Rick work together. It's a long and extremely badass fight, and because Rick is blinded by emotion, Evil Morty is the one who actually takes Rick Prime out by pulling the old switcheroo with our Morty. He incapacitates him, steals the Omega device's schematics, and then revives our Rick to take Prime out. You know, I wondered why he did this, but in the next scene, Evil Morty says,
"How's it feel? Better? No? Exactly the same? Yeah, it always does."
I feel like he let Rick kill Prime because he knew it would make him feel like shit. In a way, taking away Rick's only purpose, killing his nemesis, is actually the worst thing he could have done to him. He destroys Prime's Omega device, then threatens Rick to never come after him, or he'll erase him from infinity. And he says one of his best lines.
Why threaten? Why not just do it? Because using a weapon like this doesn't get you left alone, Morty. Think I want a bunch of vengeful summers coming after me?
He gives Rick some respect before effing off, and as of the time I'm making this video, this is the last time Evil Morty has appeared. I think it is understated the kind of intellect Evil Morty has. I'd argue he's smarter than Rick C-137, if not on par with him. If it wasn't for Evil Morty, Rick may have never found Prime, let alone killed him. That is a feat in itself. He also managed to outsmart him in Season 1 and in Season 5 by shutting down portal travel. Evil Morty is, by all accounts, evil given by how brutal his methods are, but his motivation, as I've stated before, is understandable. He actually reminds me of Ozymandias from Watchmen. Like Ozymandias, Evil Morty sees the system around him for what it truly is, a prison masquerading as order. Both characters operate in worlds where power structures are deeply flawed but maintained. Systems that claim to preserve peace, but in reality only uphold control. Evil Morty massacred countless Ricks and Mortys to escape a multiverse built around Rick's ego. Ozymandias orchestrates a catastrophic event, a fake alien attack on New York, killing millions in order to unite the world's superpowers and prevent nuclear war. Both of them want, not because they're stronger, but because they're always 10 steps ahead. One seeks peace, the other freedom, but both are willing to burn the world or the multiverse to get what they want. As I mentioned earlier, Rick is the true villain for creating the central finite curve. All Evil Morty wanted to do was escape it. When you look at this, Rick is Agent Smith from The Matrix, and Evil Morty is actually Neo. I think it's quite ironic that although Rick built the curve, isolating all universes where he is the smartest man in the universe, a Morty of all people managed to rival his intellect. You could read this as every Morty having the potential to become just as smart as Rick, despite being bred for forgiveness. A case could be made that Evil Morty helping out Rick in killing Prime relates to that too. That deep down, since he is a Morty, he kinda wanted to see his grandpa get revenge. Perhaps Evil Morty shows up again in the show, perhaps not. If he does, it won't be in Season 8, and I'm basing that purely on the coincidence that Evil Morty shows up in odd seasons. Season 1, Season 3, Season 5, and Season 7. I guess that if he ever shows up again, it's in Season 9. If this isn't the case and he shows up in Season 8, I'll eat my words. I'd actually be content if he didn't. I don't know where his story could go. If Rick leaves him alone, which he probably will given that he doesn't give a shit about Evil Morty, I don't see why he'd make an appearance. It isn't shown that he cares about his family members, so even if Summer or Beth were erased with the Omega device, would he even give a shit? His character kinda reflects what Prime Jerry told our Morty after his family had all died.
Oh, you don't get it, kid. Except for this conversation, my life is perfect. Rick was always right. Everyone needs to let go.
As we see, Evil Morty lives with no one but himself, allowing him to reach his true potential for survival. Overall, Evil Morty is one of the most compelling characters in the show. He isn't seeking control or revenge or even justice. He's seeking escape from the system, from Rick, from the destiny that was written for him the moment he was born a Morty. And that's what makes him so dangerous. He doesn't want to replace Rick. He doesn't want to reform the system. He just chooses to tear it all down. Not blindly, but through deep planning and preparation. He's chaos with a blueprint. He's not an agent of madness. He's an agent of release. Evil Morty is entropy with intent. If you're new around here, please subscribe for more content like this. I also wanted to announce my Patreon page. I'm currently a uni student who hopes to one day make this my full-time job. So having that extra support just helps me to continue making great videos like this for you. You can have a look at the benefits, which include early access to my videos, as well as an exclusive Discord server. I'm hoping to use that to get in touch with my community more closely. Please leave a like and check out my other videos right here. Thanks for watching.